if you're doing $1,000 per month, if you think about it, like to get to 100,000, it doesn't take that much, right? It was 8,300, right? So you're looking at like 8 or 9 clients. Realistically, you're probably not going to charge $1,000 out the gate. So I'd always try to like temper people's expectations there. It's like, okay, you're probably going to have like, one that's around 500 and maybe a couple that are at 700. But, you could get to 6 figures, pretty easily.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, my friend. It's great to have you here. And we're going to have some fun in this one because I am pleased to present to you a recent conversation that I had with a Web Designer Pro member who is one of our shining stars in Web Designer Pro, one of our biggest success stories, the king of local SEO, Sam Sarsten. Now, Sam was back on the podcast in episode 342, where we talked about kind of part one of the first phase of his success story, where we dug into how he brought his business to nearly 7K MRR. I'm very happy to report that exactly a year later, his business is now at over $200,000 per year, with most of that being MRR, monthly recurring revenue, through local SEO. So we're going to unpack exactly what he has done over the last couple of years in his business to get to this point, how it's structured, what he's offering, how much he's charging, and a whole lot more. Before we dive into this one, a couple links that are important. The show notes for this will be at joshhall.co/399. So head there for all the links we mentioned. Sam is the owner of an agency called Then Can Design that will be linked over there. He's also the founder of Web Designer Pro's sister community, Local SEO Academy. And he's got a special offer for you as a podcast listener. He's actually going to give you the same deal he gives Web Designer Pro members to jump into Local SEO Academy if interested. That link will be found at localseoacademy.co/Josh2. That will, of course, be linked below. And before we dive in, disclaimer, we had a trifecta of technical issues on here. We had Wi-Fi issues on Sam's end. We had some video issues, and Peaches, we have a guest appearance from Sam's dog Peaches, who messed with the chords mid-action. But there was so much good stuff that I want to make sure you hear that I didn't want to re-record the whole conversation. So this one is a little more edited than it normally would be. So just a heads up, you'll hear some more breaks, but that's not typical on this podcast if you're a first-time listener. All right, here's Sam. Let's talk local SEO and 200K, baby. All right. Sam here for round 2. I just said before I hit record, how does it feel to be one of my lead success stories of all Web Designer Pro members? Enter Sam, because you were getting going. I was like, I got to record this.
Yeah, I hadn't put a lot of thought into this episode. I wanted it to be pretty natural. I was just thinking of some things this morning, so I was driving back and forth to my kind of referral networking group. I know you had yours, and I got mine. And I was like, what? Yeah, just thinking of the whole journey and, go back to the last episode, whatever the episode number is. And hopefully we have it memorized by the end of this so we can keep referring back to it. But it's like,
342.
I won't rehash. Yeah, 342. I won't rehash the whole thing, but it's like, those drives back and forth to my folks' place around Christmas time and coming back and just not having enough time. And your tagline used to be, you probably know it better than me, is, build the web design business, finish the line for me.
So you have freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Yeah, freedom and lifestyle that you love, right? And it's that's all I ever really wanted, being Josh's biggest success or whatever, making a ton of money, which I haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're getting there. None of that stuff was really that important. It was more of the lifestyle, right? And so like we were talking about before we got on, I just took my first week off in business for the last 3 years, and everything was fine. The team did their job, projects moved forward, and I was able to relax and think and not think. And yeah. And so I guess I don't know, it's cool. It's cool to be definitely one of the bigger success stories. And I'll always say, like I said on the last episode, all glory to Josh, because, I submitted, right? I got to this point where I was like, I just want to live life a different way. And I said, well, I don't know how to do this. So I'm just going to trust this person. And, who to thunk that, this guy that says hot dog would, pack so much value into these courses when it first started. And then, that commitment to jump into the community so early. when I really couldn't afford it, and then to just stick with it. And, who knew how much value I would get out of that. And then to get the opportunity to get to meet you in real life this past year has been really awesome. So yeah, I don't know, pretty incoherent answer to your question there, but the goal wasn't to be Josh's biggest success story. The goal was to get the freedom and lifestyle that I love. And, I feel like we're right in the middle of that right now. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool, Sam. It's freaking awesome, dude. I mean, what's really incredible about, from what I've seen with you, and I know we'll get to kind of like part 2 with this kind of success story. Part 1 in episode 342 was about how you literally went from 0 to about 7K monthly recurring revenue. But at that time of us talking last year, you had a lot of positive momentum and like a huge boost, but then you had the all too common dry spell and in those challenges that happen and like the dip. It's like a roller coaster. There's like a bunch of momentum, you have some huge wins, and then there's always like some dip of some magnitude. But you weathered the storm through that. And then now, I mean, I'm seeing you become very, very quickly a multi-6-figure web design business owner, scaler, studio owner. So what's interesting about that is you went from successful solopreneur really quickly to, and maybe this is a part of your model with doing local SEO and a lot of growth plans, to where you just literally can't do everything yourself. So I imagine like your model probably forced you to scale pretty quickly, but it is really cool to see you fast track the Web Designer Pro journey. I mean, for those who don't know, we have 3 categories of members: builders, growers, and scalers. Builders are folks who are early stage, getting the business going, getting clients, figuring everything out, making up to 25 to 50K. Growers are making around 6 figures and going past 6 figures. Scalers are doing multi-6 figures, having a small team. So you did what I would think would be a 5 to 7 year journey into like 2 years. So I love seeing that you're happy and free on the other side of that, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not easy either. I think it's, as somebody that started to get into this space, with Local SEO Academy, turning over a year, learning what it's like to try to teach and coach people of how to do the same thing. It's hard because I want to tell people the truth and tell them like, this might be the hardest thing you've done up to this point in your life. But that turns people off. That scares them. So they're like, I don't want to do hard stuff, right? I'm going to go to the other channel that says, that has the get rich quick scheme and says, oh, I'm going to tell you how to make 6 figures in 3 months, or, whatever the latest, buzz thing is. But, at one point in life, I had this really good friend, and we were working out together, which I think is like a good analogy for discipline. And we were doing these really difficult workouts, and I was like, this sucks, man. And he's like, hey, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I remember blowing that off at the time because I was like, whatever, man. But for some reason that stuck with me forever. And it's like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so it's like, giving up on all that comfort and security you get from a 9 to 5, jumping into doing your own thing, and then actually like making it grow, like that's pretty scary. That's a big leap to take. But, the question I ask people that are listening that are maybe on the fence is, what kind of life do you want to live, right? It's like, do you want to be at the 9 to 5 where you're making somebody else's money? Or do you want to be brave? Do you want to take these leaps? Do you want to, and I think that's the thing. Like, it's like from going from here to there, it's taken a lot of growth and a lot of mistakes and a lot of not so easy times. But, on the other side of it, it can be all worth it. So yeah, I'm not really sure what the original question was, but that's something I felt important to say.
Tell me about that, because I couldn't have asked you this last year when we had our first success story unpack, but I can ask you this now, being that your business is more stable and you've been doing this for how long have you been doing it technically? 2.5 years?
It started at the start of 2023, so we're coming up on 3 years.
So almost 3 years into it. Was the hard worth it 3 years into it?
Well, I feel like we're still in the middle yet. Like I said, there's no yachts or Ferraris or, McMansions in Bend, Oregon, where I live. So, but again, like I was saying earlier, that's not what it's really about, right? There's different types of freedom, right? There's freedom of time, there's freedom of money and things like that. And I feel like, just the ability every week to sit down and be like, what am I going to do this week? Like, that's not what it's like when you have a job, right? And there's still obligations I have to do, right? I'm a very avid fan of like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, creating like a hierarchy of concerns, starting with Sam, working my way down to like the personal connections and the other things that are important to me, and getting way down the list to the things that actually make me money before I start putting that into the roster for the week. But I don't know, like, yeah, I would say just because of that, it's worth it. Like, we use money as a shorthand in this society because typically speaking, if you have more money, you tend to have more freedom. And that's fine. And, I definitely don't not seek money. But yeah, I think the more important thing is that like time freedom, that freedom to be able to kind of set your schedule and kind of do what you want.
That's something I heard recently. I forget who I heard this from, but it's an idea that the new true currency of like wealth is complete and utter calendar control. Like no one can put anything on your calendar except for you. Mm-hmm. Work-wise, of course. I know I have 3 kids, so everything kind of revolves around them now. But I do like that idea because it is kind of a metric of freedom, which is if you can control what calls you do, when you do them, who you have meetings with, where you're obliged to show up. If you control all those things, I mean, yeah, you may want to get financially more free within those constraints, but you've kind of made it. Like that's what freedom is. That's the best. That is the absolute best.
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest things, I don't like sharing about this a lot, but I'll share about it here because I think it's important is, back in August, my family, they had a house fire and, it was sudden, it was electrical and it was devastating, right? They lost everything. And so, within a day, I was packed up and moved out there, or didn't move out there, but I grabbed all my stuff and didn't know when I was going to come back. They luckily insurance did their job and put them up in a hotel, but that was a lot of, trouble with a puppy, and a lot of other stuff, like to just stay in that hotel for a month straight. And then eventually to get into a rental and all those things. And I remember like one of the first things I did before I left is I just sent a loom to all my clients. And I also sent a loom to all the members of my team. And I said, I don't really know how we're going to get through this month, but I'm going to need your help. And it was like, by the end of the day, they were already like messaging back and forth of like, why don't we have a Slack? Why aren't we doing these things? And it was almost like it forced us to kind of get together and build this into something more cohesive. And obviously a lot of the clients, were like, take your time, do what you got to do. And I feel like, it just reminds me of your story in the NICU, right? Of like, you got to this like tipping point where you had to do something differently because your life was changing for whatever reason, right? And so I made that decision to like kind of make the team more cohesive and all that stuff. And then that made it so we needed to add more help. And then eventually we realized that our systems weren't that dialed in. So we ended up getting help for that as time went on. But it's like, that was really where the growth started to happen. And, it's like, obviously you don't ever wish these things, but, the universe has a funny way of presenting you with these situations that feel impossible in the moment. And then somehow you get through them. A couple of weeks ago for the 4th of July, they moved back into their house. They have a fully rebuilt home. It was covered by insurance. They're back in their, safe space and everything. And, they made it. And it's nice to be on that other side. But, throughout this last year, there's been so many times where I'm like, I'm so grateful. I don't have to ask for time off. I can just go be there and be with them. If you would have, interviewed me on a podcast episode, day one, going into pro, you'd be like, what are the things you want? I'd be like, well, when a terrible tragedy strikes my family, I really hope I'm going to have the time to be able to show up exactly how I hope. That just doesn't show up on our list, but then real life just does its thing. And, you either get to show up or you don't. Right. And so, yeah, like that's an intangible that has just been incredible that I think I would have been able to do the same thing. I would have figured it out, but it would have been a lot harder. And it was nice to not have to, it was one less worry when there were a lot of worries going on.
That's beautifully said, man. Those intangible results that, may not look sexy on a sales page. That's truly what we want, is just ultimate freedom, which is what we have available to us. And you're a shining example, man. So let's dive into kind of where the business is now and then specifically what you've done over the past year, because you went to 6 figures in about 18 months, if I recall. It was about a year and a half that you kind of got your...
Let's do some real math here. Yeah. I think, when we had met, I think I talked about this at WDPCon, which is Web Designer Pro's yearly conference, which is going to start being hosted in Hawaii, according to Josh Hall. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the goal, baby.
I got to sub in at the last second as a speaker. And after our podcast interview, I did my math, and I was in this like state of like, I shared in this talk, which maybe enough time's gone where we could post this on YouTube, because I think it was a good talk. But anyway, but I shared in the talk where right before we had that interview last time, I had my first loss in business, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to do this success story interview with Josh when I'm losing money over here? But when I actually sat down after the interview, because Josh, of course, got into coach mode and told me to stop, because I said, oh, I got so many things I need to think about. And he said, why don't you slow down and think about what you've accomplished over the last year and a half? Because I was like almost squarely a year and a half into business at this point. And I did. There's a little hill over here. It's like 500 feet of elevation, and I just would go up it. I wrote some stuff down, went down, went back up to the top, wrote some stuff down. And I was like, holy smokes, like I've really done a lot in the last year and a half. When I got home, I actually sat down and made a better spreadsheet that kept track of the MRR better. And it had been going up and to the right. People listening at home, trust me, my hand is going up and to the right. And that was good. It's hard to say, like when you hit six figures, right? People know like when you're building MRR, it doesn't hit right away. And so, yeah, I guess when I hit, 7 or 8, I guess it'd be $8,000 per month was probably around that 18-month mark, but definitely within the first year. One thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is that first year was under $25,000, right? A lot of feast or famine. And then the second year was about 125,000. And this third year is, everything's good, knock on wood, knocking on the desk, should be 250,000. And so, to think going from that first year of 25,000 to the third year of 250,000, like that's a 10x jump in 24 months. Like that's a pretty big jump. And so, I think that is probably the title of the episode, and people might be wondering, how the heck do you do that? And, the very first thing that you got to do, I think if you're a web designer, you're hoping to start a web design business, is you need to commit to having an MRR service, which stands for monthly recurring revenue. And, Josh calls these growth plans. Obviously, I like Local SEO. That's the one I ended up choosing. But having that consistent income changes the game. We have over 50 people now in the community Local SEO Academy, where we all are trying to learn how to do local SEO better together. And the number one thing I hear there in our weekly Q&As is, they're afraid to take the leap because they don't want to lose that financial security that they have from the 9 to 5. And that makes sense, right? And the problem with like web design, which I think you'll agree, Josh, is like you really don't get that security when you're just doing websites. And, Josh, over time was able to build his business through MRR, through maintenance plans. And I think the big difference between doing the maintenance plan route, because I actually just saw Cami at WordCamp US, and she's got, I think 10,000 websites on maintenance plans right now. So she's crushing it. Yeah, but that took a long time, right?
Well over 200. Yeah. But yeah.
Well over 200. That's the real number. Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, if you have well over 200 people on a plan that's between $50 and $100 a month, you're going to be doing all right. Right. But that takes time. You can't build 200 websites overnight. And so it's like, how do you shortcut the process? That's where the MRR, the growth plan comes in, whether it's local SEO, whether it's social media, email marketing. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities with AI as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I want people to know is like, do you need to build websites? Yes. And you need to also, because that's the hub of the digital marketing, it's still so important. And you need to build good websites that actually convert, because otherwise, what's the point? Where are you sending people to? But then the other piece is like something that gets people a return on their investment. I think that's really important.
So Sam is back. We had a puppy technical problem. I think Sam's pup was rubbing up against the cord, something like that.
Yeah, Peach is here and she is causing chaos.
Peaches. Yeah,
she's not a peach.
What a silly girl. That's all right.
Of the time.
It's all good. We love pups on the Web Designer Pro calls or the podcast. Pups are always good. So Sam, you had mentioned the first 18 months was up and downs with fixed one-off projects and slowly building that MRR. You're at a place now where, like you mentioned, the true way to like fast track MRR is to have higher paying growth plans. You had mentioned Cami meeting up at WordCamp and a few other Web Designer Pro members who are doing multi six figures who have just support maintenance plans. It's very possible, but it's at scale, and they're generally building that slowly over time. So to fast track it, yeah, it's either local SEO or some growth plan. So specifically this last year, Sam, what have you done with your growth plans? You committed to local SEO, but in order to get to a $250,000 range, ARR, basically annual recurring revenue, what does that look like? Like, how are those breaking down to what your plans and what you're offering?
Yeah, the vast majority, probably like 60 to 70% of that, when everything's said and done, is going to be just our SEO. I call them TLC plans, for traffic, leads, and clients, because that's what people want. They want more of that. And so, yeah, that's our bread and butter. So, around a year ago, right before we had our last podcast interview, I finally committed to just doing yearly contracts, yearly commitments, because there's a lot of reasons for it. It's a good business practice from my perspective, but also, there's a lot of people that are switching between agencies all the time. You don't really want to do that. You want to commit to somebody. So it's actually kind of a two-sided, it's like a win-win, because it makes it so we're both committing to doing this for a year. It's worked out pretty good. We just had our first two clients get to the end of their contract that were on a contract, and they've stuck around. So that's been great to see. Eric talks about we celebrate the 13th month, right? Not the first month. And so, we're seeing them stick around the 13th month. So that's good. I mean, so we must be doing all right. And so when I made that switch, I tried a couple different pricing strategies out. And when I made that switch, I said, okay, a lot of people know the big secret of local SEO is that there's a lot of front end work in the strategy side. And then there's a lot of building and stuff there. And then you're kind of getting this like maintenance mode. Sometimes there's some spikes here and there where you might find some new opportunities, or, the honey-do list from the client increases or whatever. But for the most part, it's front-loaded work, but there's, And so I was like, okay, what can I smooth the cost out to be? And so what I ended up landing on was $1,000 per month for 12 months, which was the most I'd ever charged. I remember being so scared to do that, like literally so scared to do that. And I don't know how, like I just look back at all the little blips of luck that the universe has blessed me with along the way. But I had changed the price, and then I didn't get any sales for a little while. And then Michelle Bourbonniere did a copy boost on my sales page. And I think we published it on Monday. And one of the things she told me to do is like, hey, if your number is going to be on the page, you should just tell people that they can text you. And I was like, okay. And so so Monday we published it. Tuesday, I get a text. Hey, it says I can text you. So here's me texting you. None of the times on your calendar work. Can we get a call this week? And I'm like, and that ended up being our first contract to client. And so it's like, I wish it always worked out like that, right? But it does not always work out like that. But that was the proof that like people are willing to pay that much, because this is the other thing I hear in Local SEO Academy all the time is I tell people like, hey, like you gotta start at a higher price, because if you end up with $300 per month local SEO clients, you're not going to have the capacity to grow a team and start charging more. Like you got to start charging as quickly. You got to start charging more as quickly as possible. Sure, you'll probably do it for free for one of your web design clients that you already have, or for yourself. So that way you can build those skills, right? You don't really deserve to charge anybody until you can sort of kind of do it, right? But then you got to do it at half off, and then you got to do it at a quarter off, and then you got to do it at full price. You got to get yourself to full price as quickly as possible. And so that was kind of, the part we're skipping is the part where I'm doing this ramp up, because I did this ramp up too. But once I got to that price, then I was like, okay, now we got something. And the antidote to not having a stable income is growing that MRR. And so now each time I added a client, it's $1,000 per month increase. And so it's like, oh, now I can afford another person. Now I can afford that extra license of SEMrush, which is freaking expensive. And it's, it helps make those decisions more confidently. And, sometimes it doesn't feel as secure as getting a good old fashioned paycheck from, a 9-to-5 job. But it's like, now I'm like consistent, like I can consistently say, we're going to make this much money this month. And that's amazing. And, the biggest switch in the last 6 months is getting to the point where it's like, okay, maybe we can charge more than $1,000 per month. I got comfy, just like everybody does. People get comfy charging $2,500 for a website when they should be charging $5,000, when really they should be charging $7,500 or $10,000, right? Yeah. And so that was something that's happened, more recently, actually at WDPCon, made it worth my plane ticket and everything else, because, Shannon Matterns little training that she did. I shouldn't say little training because it was massively helpful, but like I was able to close 2 deals using her like pricing structure. And so, I mean, the total of those deals is nearly 30,000, and the difference per project is 2,400. So we're looking at like $5,000 extra from just those 2, year-long projects, just from like a small shift, and we are providing great value. And so it's like, why aren't we asking for a little bit more, right? And, like Shannon says, get out of your clients' pockets. And so, yeah, I think knowing that every time we close a deal, that helped like build confidence as we went along. And so the vast majority is still those SEO plans. We still build websites. Sometimes we build websites first. Sometimes we build websites after we start a client. And then technically the Local SEO Academy money is included in that. I'm just thinking about the whole business as a whole, then Can Designs LLC. And so, if you strip that away, we're looking probably, it might be closer to 200,000 just from the agency, but because Local SEO Academy is growing, which is good. Josh appreciates that as one of our strongest affiliate partners. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely mostly the SEO plans. And there's a little bit for maintenance plans still.
K is a sweet spot. $12,000 annually, of course. And then are you locking in 12 months for every client?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried a bunch of different little things. I have some experiments that I'm kind of working on right now. I've done, I used to call them SEO 6-packs, where we do like 6 hours for a discounted price. That was okay, but it was hard to show the return. And really what's the goal? The goal is to get them work with us long term. And so I just didn't like that. So now what we've been rolling out, and we have our first client on this right now, so I'm excited to keep exploring this more, is called SEO Roadmap. In case you're a random local business owner, especially contractor or a holistic medicine provider that's listening to this episode for some reason, you should check out our SEO Roadmap. It's really cool. For all the web designers, it's basically paid discovery. And so, we charge, it's going to be around $1,200. And we basically do like 75% of what we would normally do in the first month of working with a client. And we basically write the strategy out, hand it to the person, and then basically tell them like, you want to keep working with us? That was your first month bill. Let's keep going. If you don't, here's this, go to Fiverr, go to, your local agency. We don't care, but here's your plan. So I think that's a better tool to have, is paid discovery, which a lot of people have been learning this past year or last couple of years, really. Then I know Eric recently talked about it, Local SEO Boost. And I think that works for people that have never had marketing done before for their businesses. I think that's a good tool for those businesses. It's something I might explore, but I'm really trying to work with more like bigger companies moving forward. So there might not be the best fit for that. So we'll see. But it's almost always a year contract.
So minus paid discovery, what's worked for you with a 200,000 plus annual business is $1,000 sweet spot SEO package. And then using Shannon's pricing matrix to have a more higher value offer. Is that right? That might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just allowed us to charge more. Now it's $1,200 a month for our last 2 clients. So
okay, so what's the additional suite of services for you right now, Sam? You've got your sweet spot is the $1,000 a month SEO plan. That's 12-month commitment. Websites you're doing as a part of that or separate, depending on the situation. Is that right?
Yeah. But yes.
So do you know your average customer? Like, is your average customer 12 to 18,000 per year? Is that fair to say? Because if you break that down by a couple hundred, that's actually not that many. I mean, there's a decent amount of customers, but not that many. So even if we did 200 divided by, let's say, 15,000 on average, that's only 13 customers. That's what's wild about this. And that's one reason I love the new revenue calculator we put out is if you have $12,000 or let's say $15,000 of an average customer annual value, 13 of them will get you a $200,000 business.
Yeah. I'm looking at this right now. Yeah. I would say most of them. Yeah. Because we have a couple websites, so those are like 6,000 once they're fully paid or something like that. So yeah, I mean, just, snapshot right now live, we have 17 ongoing clients that are paying us like the main price. And so, yeah, there's a couple OGs in there that are on slightly lower pricing, but for the most part, everybody's on that. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that much. That's what I try to tell people in Local SEO Academy, right? It's like, if you're doing $1,000 per month, if you think about it, like to get to 100,000, it doesn't take that much, right? It was 8,300. right? So you're looking at like 8 or 9 clients. Realistically, you're probably not going to charge $1,000 out the gate. So I'd always try to like temper people's expectations there. It's like, okay, you're probably going to have like, one that's around 500 and maybe a couple that are at 700. But, you could get to 6 figures, pretty easily. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, how do we get to that next level?
So your suite of services currently, if we were to list this out on your revenue calculator, you've got website designs that you will do one-off still. Is that right, Sam? Will you just do a website design, or do you?
Yeah, we still do websites.
So what's the price points for those on average? Are you at like 5-6K range or less?
Roughly. Yeah. I've been doing more of like getting people on monthly payments just to get them used to paying monthly. So that way, if we want to upsell them to a SEO package down the road, or just keep them on a maintenance plan. They're just used to paying us every month. And I think that's a luxury of having cash flow and being established. That's harder to do. Eric Schramm will tell you that, right? Or Steve Schramm will tell you that, right? I'm mixing up Eric Dingler and Steve Schramm. Steve Schramm does subscription web design, and he talks a lot in his podcast and his trainings about how that's hard to do in the early days because you want some cash to get running. So yeah, we usually do, I think it's 500 a month. So that's 6,000 over the year.
Okay. So you basically do a payment plan over a year. What about maintenance and support? No SEO plans, but what's that looking like in your suite of services?
Yeah, I have like $100 a month plan, which includes like light updates, plugins, security, all that good stuff. I think we have like 5 or 6 clients on that. Very few.
Okay. So again, you committed to local SEO, found your sweet spot with $1,000 price point, and now that's given you the leverage to be able to boost up, have some more custom projects, and have your one-off web design services, and then slowly grow your support, sounds like. Do you use your support plan as a fallback at all? Like if somebody of the 17 clients who are paying you at least $1,000 a month, if one of those says, listen, Sam, you're so handsome, this has been great, but we're gonna back off the SEO, do you upsell a support plan, or has that not been an issue? What's that look like? So I'm sorry, I'm going to say downsells. Do you downsell that?
Yeah, we have kind of a fallback plan. It really only works for clients we've worked with for a long period of time. So this is usually like kind of the back pocket for if an emergency comes up and they're not able to continue at that rate, and I don't want to take them to court. But I mean, it's like I'm a human, and it's like, sometimes things happen, right? And so it's like, okay, where can we take people to? And so, the maintenance would be the bare minimum. And so we try to figure out like what's something that can kind of keep the SEO momentum going without us putting too much work in, because say they need to jump down to like a $350 or $250 price range per month, because that's pretty doable for most people, even if they're going through a rough patch. And so we have kind of a, hidden package that we use sometimes that's mostly just authority building, because once you've done the heavy lifting, that's the most important thing, is getting those locally relevant, industry relevant backlinks. And so we keep that momentum going. And then occasionally we might look back at the content, but I try to not build anything on that plan. So we have a couple clients that are on that plan right now. We're hoping to ramp those back up. And so I would say that's our first place we go to. And then like we have one guy that basically shot to the top, and he's like, I think I'm good. He's like, I'm going to try to run this summer just where I'm at from last year. And he doesn't have a lot of competition. It's, it's a smaller type of industry. And so that's what he did. And he just went to a maintenance plan to keep his site updated. And so, yeah, that was like the fallback for him. And so, I mean, that works. It's super easy to do maintenance. We all know that.
How high will you go with like a custom plan? You mentioned Shannon's presentation with the pricing matrix, which is basically just price anchoring, and you give folks an option for a really high deal or the mid tier or a lower tier. But with that, like, what are some of your high end, the couple that you've sold, what do those look like? How drastic of a difference is that monthly recurring revenue for that type of plan?
So I mean, at this point, I don't want to give away all Shannon's secret sauce here, but like you have 3 different tiers, right? Where the deliverables are essentially the same, right? Except for the level of care. And so that's basically the way I pitch it. I'm like, hey, if you want VIP service, you get direct access to us, less than 24-hour turnaround on all client communication. That's what this plan is, but it's X $1,000 per year. Most people say, well, I don't necessarily need all that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, here's the plan most people sign up for. So that's the way I've been presenting it lately. And most people like that plan. And it's just, now it's positioned at a higher price point. And so the thing is, like, and I talk about this a lot in Local SEO Academy, is if you go out and you look at most local SEO agencies, they're going to have tiers. And on those different tiers, sometimes you see different things. Maybe they're building a certain number of citations based on the tiers. Maybe they're doing a certain number of GBP posts per tier. Maybe they're doing a certain number of blog posts per tier. They're doing that. Don't work with that company because blog posts aren't that important for local SEO. But I really teach that there is one plan that you need to do for local SEO, one plan only. And it's like, you need to work on the GBP. You need to work on their website. It needs to be well structured, have pages for all their services and all their service areas. And you need to build authority. And, the way we teach that, the structure behind that is you start with an SEO strategy sprint. So that way you have your plan and you have everything set in stone and everybody's kind of agreed on it. Maybe it's your team and maybe it's the client, definitely. Then from there, you go to the build phase where you're either re-optimizing the content that already exists, because a lot of times people already have a website that's pretty good. So sometimes you can just build on what they already have, or you're kind of building new pages and all that stuff, or building location pages. A lot of times that needs to be done. And then from there, you start building authority. Now, you don't want to sleep on it. You want to check back in on the strategy over time, and you might find opportunities where you can, revamp a certain location pages, or they say, oh, you know what, I actually want to target this service. And we have a company that does blinds, and they're like, we need an awnings page. And so, people just think about stuff down the road, and we can do that. But that's the flow. That's the structure with every single client. It works for, every contractor business we've worked with. It works with holistic medicine. We've had small law firm, property management, mortgage broker. We had a storage unit, and so it's like, it keeps working over and over again. And so, like, that's it. There is no high ticket, low ticket, middle, it's like, this is the plan. This is what actually works for local SEO. And so that's what we sell, and, the rest of it is just kind of like customer service levels. And, like the bottom tier would be like a done with you solution, but we haven't really even got into that yet. Mostly, I think it's going to be more work. So I'm kind of scared about that plan.
Yeah, so you started off with just basically an add-on of VIP support to take it up from 1,000 to 1,200.
No, so that would be like a $1,700 a month plan that's never been sold before. Yeah. So
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
It's just charging more. Simply saying it's not $1,000 anymore; it's $1,200.
And you got a well over $200,000 business with that. I mean, yeah, I think you could take that to $250,000 for sure. So profitability, that's the big thing though. And you rightly said, if you charge low for especially local SEO plans, you're going to have zero margin to be able to hire out. So what's the latest on your team, Sam? How many little tin cans do you have out there in the world now?
Yeah. So on a weekly basis, we have like a newer VA. We're still working on integrating her fully, which has mostly been my fault. But we have 6 subcontractors that work with us on a weekly basis. And so, we have basically like a full web team. We have the designer and the developer. On the SEO side, we have our SEO strategist, and we also have, he's kind of evolved into this new role called client success manager, because we realized we kind of need somebody that's in charge of that at this point with this many clients. And then we brought in Eleanor from Web Designer Pro as kind of our, if anybody's familiar with the visionary integrator role, she's definitely the integrator. And so she's been kind of in charge of operations. We moved from Notion to ClickUp as a project management system. We have all our SOPs written out in there. It's been really good. We're, like I said, working kind of the optimization phase for SOPs. I'm trying to think what else other people do.
Why, Sam?
Yeah,
I was going to say, I got a little to-do item for you. Why aren't these folks on your site? I'm not seeing anything about the team behind me.
That's literally the next thing on our list is, I just hit the microphone if I didn't unplug it. But the next thing on the list is redesign the website. Yeah, I think that's been a limiting factor. You're looking at basically last year's version of Vencan, not this year's. And so I appreciate the coaching call. Yeah. Because that is the next thing we need to do. And I want to highlight a lot of the case studies. We've had a lot of success, and I think we have a lot of clients that be willing to either get on camera or at least write some stuff down for us. And that's what really matters, right? And so, my goal is to get that done end of the year for sure, but hopefully faster. And I want to do it in Divi 5. So that's another beast, but we'll see.
You could do it in Divi 5 right now for sure. It's very, very close to official beta launch. But if you're not doing like WooCommerce or have any other wild plugins, you could do Divi 5. Yeah. Pro's in Divi 5. I had it for Divi 5 for a year now. So yeah, you're ready to go, man. I totally agree. Yeah. I can kind of tell the site is it feels a little jumbled. It doesn't feel like it does feel like it represents 2024. then can, but not 2025.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
For sure. Yeah. And we're getting ready to be in 2026. So yeah. So, I mean, you asked about profitability. So, all those people, they got to eat, right? And we got expensive tools like SEMrush. Dang you, SEMrush, and your expensive prices. And so it's like, that's definitely a factor. But we're making progress on that. It's interesting. And I try to share this, pretty candidly in Local SEO Academy. It's like, as you start to ramp up, these expenses, start to pile up in this like middle phase between like 10 and 20 clients. But once you get past that, your tools are almost maxed out, and you might be adding, maybe like a couple double-digit dollars per month per tool, but you're really not adding to it. So it's like, for me, when I look ahead at our vision, we've been talking a lot about this we've started a weekly manager meeting, which has been kind of fun the last couple of weeks. And, as we look ahead at vision, kind of our goal for the next, by end of Q2, I would like to be around 25 clients, because I think that's going to be a sweet spot as far as like profitability goes, where we're starting to get to more of that number of like, 35 to 40% profitability. Everybody's getting paid a little bit more, and we're just providing better service to our clients. So yeah, that's kind of the track that we're headed towards. And we're still making money. So it's really cool to see that we're profitable. I'm paying myself more. And we're, making progress.
So 25 clients with that by Q2 26.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Sweet. So profitability wise now, are you at like 30% ish after expenses and team, or is that included? Just rough. I'm just kind of curious, just rough wise, because I think a lot of people
you say,
really,
I just want rough, and then I pull up QuickBooks.
Well, it's like everyone's interested in growth plans, but then it can get dangerous when you do have to up all your subscriptions and do have to pay more because you can't do the fulfillment. So that is the true beauty, heads up for everybody, about larger one-off projects in a scaled maintenance plan, is the expenses are so unreasonably low. It's like, it's ridiculous. So I was like just highly, highly profitable because I was managing 75 client. I think I was paying $124 a month with Managed WP. No other SEO tools, a few subscriptions that I had, but lifetime access to Divi, Gravity Forums was like $100 a year, a few others. So it's like, it's stupid, but SEO is a different world with expenses. Yeah. Which is also why $1,000 plans, highly recommend it, at least. Yeah. $1,000 a month.
Yeah. So I'm looking at a ballpark number right now, just looking at QuickBooks. And I feel like it's hard to calculate because now, as an S Corp, my payroll is an expense,
Yeah, now I got you.
So it's like, maybe that should be in the calculation, but including that as an expense, right now we're at like a 20% profitability. I don't know.
That's great.
We could ask AI to figure that out.
If you're paying all your subscriptions, all your expenses, and your team, and you have 20% profitability, especially 3 years into the business, that's incredible, Sam. That's awesome. I mean, I know, quote unquote, the experts say an ideal range is 30, to have like 30% pure profit left over in your business after paying you, after paying team, after paying expenses and taxes, of course. So 30% is the goal. That's kind of what I'm heading towards. That's my personal goal as well. But that's great. Yeah, that's freaking awesome.
And who knows where it ends up at the end of the year. And it's definitely a number I want to play with. And I think will be better as we get more clients. And so 2026 is definitely a year where I'm like, okay, it'd be good to hit this number and this profitability. Like, I think that's going to be kind of a big pivoting point for us. But I don't know. I've been kind of playing around with the idea of 10x. It's like over the last 2 years, being able to 10x, like, what would the next 10x look like? Going from 250 to 2.5. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sounds crazy, but
I mean, obviously it's doable. It's just, I think the question is at what cost? Like, what is 10x going to cost, basically? Like, would that be? It would probably have to be a mix of much higher packages.
Yeah.
Certain level of volume. Your team would be at capacity. You'd probably have a lot more expenses, a lot more taxes. So yeah, it is kind of like I don't want to hold you back from 10x by any means.
No. Yeah. It's just a funny thought because I've been reading a book that's talking about, the 10x is easier than 2x.
Have you done the revenue calculator? Have you tried 10x? Make a 10x version with a revenue calculator.
Yeah. What's the link for that? Just so everybody knows at home.
Just go in Pro and then just type revenue calculator, or you can ask Brock. Brock will. But yeah,
Brock's the man. We love Brock.
We love Brock. He's our AI assistant in Pro. Shout out to my daughter naming him Broccoli. So yeah, just search revenue calculator and it's a Google, or I can share it to you as well. You should find it quick. But
where is Brock?
You just do the main search. Yeah, you can. I've got it all over. It's in Web Designer HQ, which has all the links to everything. There's it's in the business course, or you just search revenue calculator. It should come up. There's a little graph in front of it. But what I would do, Sam, is map out. You can have fun with it. What's the 10x version? Yeah, what would be the 10x or what would be the 10x version of that? And you can just map out how many units you need to sell at what price points, factoring everything in.
All right, I'm making a copy right now. It's actually happening, people. Okay, subscription model.
It's a Google Doc. And by the way, I will, well, as of right now, whoever doesn't have this can get it completely for free. Just need to jump on my email list. First thing you'll get is revenue calculator. So I'll put a link to that below. But yeah, man, I would map that out.
Yeah. I was playing around with it, and I think it's definitely a lot bigger plan, for instance, one number is like, if somehow you're able to go to 5,000 per month, that's 41 clients. So, I mean, that's not a huge agency.
It may depend on your clientele too. I imagine a lot of local businesses, 1,000 is probably like a
we're kind of reaching the cap.
It's a healthy sweet spot. I feel like 2. You could probably push it to 2, but I feel like, 3,000 itself is a $36,000 investment annually. So that's like they probably need to be hitting. They'd probably need to be like at least $3 million businesses probably to hit that range. So realistically.
Yeah, and the other thing I keep telling myself too is kind of going back to the chasing wealth, not money, right? It's like, and you said at what cost, right? It's like you go to this 10x, you try to do this, and you're burning the candle at both ends again. That's really hard. And, we all know that there's probably a business down the street in all of our cities that's making 20 million a year gross revenue, but is actually not profitable. And then, you look at little Dencan making its 250, but maybe ending the year with 50,000 in profitability. Like that's, which business would you rather have? I feel like the 250 would be a lot easier to run, right? And so doesn't necessarily need to be more complicated. So we're definitely looking at how do we get to higher ticket stuff, not necessarily 5,000, but just kind of working with the right businesses that, because I think, more higher ticket clients tend to be easier to work with, right? They kind of sign the check and they say, okay, that's our marketing expense. We're going to trust these guys to do their thing, where the other people might be looking over your shoulder the whole time, being like, so how are things going?
Well, two quick thoughts. Definitely, Sam, do the 10x on the spreadsheet. Just see what that would look like. I do think that would be a nice little guiding light, even if you don't want to go for it initially in the next couple years, but that's still in the back of your mind of like, maybe the first stepping stone is, what's a 1 or 2x over the next couple years based off of your model, because a 2x at 250 is 500. So that's a whole different ball game than 250 as well. So you're right there. I think it's a great spot. The other thing I was thinking, when it comes to any amount of investment, whether it's 1,000 or 2 or 3 or 5,000, the only metric that matters is ROI. So that would be like, from a marketing perspective for you, it would just be of like, there's whether someone's paying you 500 a month or 5,000, if there's a net positive in ROI for them, that's it. Like it's just a matter of their capital, really. Like some clients only have 500 a month. So it's like, well, let's see what we can do to get you an ROI. If a client can do 5,000 a month, you could probably do a lot more to get those results. So that's something to consider as well. So wrapping this up, bringing this home here, Sam. Yeah, that's the big thing with those bigger investments, is like, it's all about ROI. Like that really is everything. And then the question is like, how much do you want to invest in the ROI? $500 a month or $5,000 a month. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about at WDPCon, right? Because everybody's so scared to charge more, me included, right? At the time I was talking about how I was stuck at 1,000, right? And now we're charging 1,200. So it's like incremental progress, but it's like, you're not selling the thing, you're selling the difference, right? This opportunity for them to make more money. And so that's the important thing to understand. So yeah.
So at this, guys.
I was going to say, and it's crazy to think this all started from filling in Yoast plugins from Josh Hall tutorials.
Yeah, because I do remember you saying when you went through my SEO course, it was like once you got Yoast green, and it was just thrilling. And it is thrilling. There is something. Are you?
It really is.
Are you still
it's
using
very
Yoast?
satisfying.
Are you using Yoast for all of as your main tool for all those?
I did get SEO Press on a lower price. I use Yoast whenever I need to use the free version. And I do think that they're kind of sticking ahead of the curve. So we might make a switch to Yoast. We'll see. So I definitely love Yoast. I think they're a great product. And like I said, we might switch to use them as an agency. The only reason I use them is I got in at a slightly cheaper price for SEO Press. But
are you still using that framework though of like title, metadata, content to try to match everything up in green for all location pages, service pages, etc.?
No. There's a couple reasons for that. One is once you kind of know okay, so here's the thing. If you've never done SEO before, welcome. This is Sam in 2023, right? Literally like less than 2 years ago. I'm in the exact same boat as you. Those little green lights and those SEO tools, which if you're using a free one, you should definitely be using Yoast because it's the best one out there for sure. Those green lights will teach you how to do it, how to optimize all those things, and if you get into blog writing and stuff like that, it's still very helpful. But eventually you're going to cross a threshold where you don't need that anymore. And what you're actually doing is you're putting information in, it's like keyword in the meta. And so if people want to, they can actually steal your keywords by looking at that. And Google hasn't looked at that since 2008. So when you put that information in there, it does, most people probably aren't looking for that, but that's just something to think about. And so we don't use that anymore. I actually had a client recently that uses Yoast. They're like, wait a minute, why don't we have green lights? How do we know this is optimized? And I was like, well, because, optimized means this, right? What the green lights are looking for algorithmically is that we're using the keywords in the SEO title, the H1, the H2s throughout the body and all that stuff. Once you do it enough, you have your own green light system internally. But I think it's so helpful when you have no idea what you're doing, no frame of reference. Like it's so good to have something like that in the early days. And so, yeah, highly recommend starting there.
And it can be vanity metrics because you're essentially optimizing for the plugin versus optimizing for the page, it sounds like. But
it's kind of like page speed score and all that other stuff, right? What did we really, eventually you just got to throw in the towel and be like, all right, it's as optimized as possible, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's good, man. Well, I'm really excited. We're recording this at the time where we're really about to talk SEO a lot in pro. Michelle's going to be coming back on the podcast and going to be talking about AI in SEO. Obviously, what you're doing with ThenCan and then your local SEO Academy is huge. You're on the leading edge and the front edge of that. I'm about to revamp my SEO course for a new version, and it's going to be a lot about sharing what you're doing with local SEO and then just kind of what I've learned over the past since I launched the initial version of the SEO course. So we're in interesting times with SEO, but I want to wrap up real quick with that thought. Where do you feel SEO is with AI real quick? Your business is built on SEO. When I see SEO is dead memes, I'm like, I'm going to call bullshit on that. And interestingly enough, I'm actually personally doubling down on SEO. I think it's more important than ever in the age of AI to own digital real estate. So personally, that's where I'm at. Where are you at?
Well, I think we should take a big step back to what the heck are we actually doing, right? Because we all kind of have fake jobs, right? We sell these services on the internet. So what are we doing, right? And what we're really doing is there's small local business owners and there's people in their area, and the people in the area want to work with them. Maybe it's not just local businesses, but in my example, right? And for these people to find them, they need to use a tool to find these people, right? Because nobody talks to their neighbors anymore. And for these local businesses, they need to show up in that place where people are looking. And that usually means that these people need help because they're busy, doing garage floors and, performing acupuncture and stuff like that. They don't want to go on the internet and figure this out. And so, even if in the next couple of years we switch to a complete metaverse, we're all wearing VR goggles and, not going outside anymore, like somebody's going to be helping businesses show up in the metaverse, over the other one. And, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Spoiler alert, over 92% of local searches still go through Google, which is only like 1% lower than it was the last couple of years. So don't panic. SEO is not dead. I was just at WordCamp US last week in Portland, and Danny Sullivan, who coined the term search engine marketing. He was like one of the good SEOs back in the day, one of the OGs, and went to retire and then got scooped up by Google as a VP as a new venture. And he's always like tried to give information back to the community from the inside. He was one of the kickoff speakers the very first day, and he had a slide that said like, good GEO, AEO, LMNO, PEO is just good SEO. And, some people will argue against that. It's Google. Of course, they're giving us this information. But the stuff we found that might be a little helpful for AI search, it's pretty much the stuff you would have been doing anyway. Like the end result is still the same thing. And so I really think, especially in the short term, people are going to continue to use Google. And if they start to use other tools like AI search or AI assistants like ChatGPT to do more research, which I have to admit I've been doing myself, the stuff that's been working for SEO, showing up in the local directories, having a well-structured website that's targeting all of your services and all of your locations, and building authority by getting listed on locally and industry relevant websites, it's still probably going to be helpful, especially in the short term, the next 2 to 3 years. And as things change, hopefully the agencies you're working with and the talking heads on YouTube that you're listening to keep changing too, but not too drastically because it's not changing that fast. So, that's kind of my take.
That's great. That's a great way to cap this one off, man. Sam, appreciate it. Love hearing about the success over the past year since our last kind of success catch up. So again, man, you're like just a shining example of how to take advantage of Web Designer Pro. Like you jump head first, committed, you got to 6 figures in the 18-month range while building your MRR, became a stable solopreneur, and then truly built a business. And you had to scale quickly because of your model, because you went MRR focused local SEO with a lot of different, fulfillment behind that. But you can do it. So I love seeing you do it, dude. It's freaking awesome. Like I'll probably have to,
Josh.
I'll have to reel you back a little bit. Just I want you to have those 10x goals, but I also want you to continue to love what you do as well. But you love work. Like if you love your work and it's fun to build and you have fun creating, there's also no shame in that. As much as I'm an anti-hustler, it's like sometimes I do want to work. Sometimes this is what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to work on that sales page. That's more than anything I want to do. So yeah.
And it's about balance, right? It's like finding the time to go ski. Climbed a mountain the other day, 2 times this summer. It's like you got to do the things you love. And sometimes the thing I love is working, but I'm just trying to, work a little less till 2 a.m, which I have been, and just enjoy life a little bit more. Right. I think that's what we're all trying to do.
Your next season here is probably focusing on what? Profitability and just bigger swings, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's probably marketing, really. It's
okay.
Something I haven't focused on that much, but yeah, just bigger swings, like marketing to kind of a slightly different audience and still probably capturing some of those other leads along the way. Not the 5,000 per month, but I don't know. We'll see. But, just trying to really identify like, luxury home builders, they make a really good margin. So they only need a few luxury homes per year more than the guy next to them, right? It's like kind of identifying those things and talking directly to those people. So yeah, I'm excited to see what that looks like and dig into it with my team, who I totally trust. So
there wouldn't be any shame in having a 5K option, and then your primary one is the 2,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah. So
or I like the 2X model with pricing. Maybe 5K per month is your top plan, which is maybe very limited. Maybe you can only account for like 1 or 2 of those a month with your team. And then you have a $2,500 plan, which is your average. And then your $1,000 is your backup. Like that's the low plan.
Yeah. When I look at like 3-year vision, that was the thing we talked about. We're like, if we had 50 clients, how do we get how do we get to 1.2, right? How do we get to 100,000 a month? And that was one of the things we were looking at. Was like, well, we could have 100 clients at $1,200 a month, or we could have 50 clients at $2,500 a month. How do we start inching towards that? So, yeah.
I think that would be an interesting, 5K, 2,500, 1,000. If you were to tier it out in threes with a different level
Something
of
like that.
Yeah. Because essentially your main plan right now could be the baseline. You know it works. It's proven already. So what would that look like with a 2,500 option and then a very select VIP 5K option?
Yeah. It's fun times. I got things to think about.
Interesting. What if 5K is like a 6-month commitment and then the other two are annual? You know, like what if there's I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
All right. That's for the next one. That's for the next one.
Yeah, that's for the next one. We'll see we'll check in next year and we'll see where we're at. Yeah. Well, I know we're getting to the end, so I just want to say, I am a big believer in the see one, do one, teach one philosophy. And so a little over a year ago, I was encouraged mostly by people in pro to just put some stuff out there. And so I've started to, so I put some courses out there last year. Josh's advice in the DMs was, do not do this, focus on your agency. And I said, no, Josh, I will do as I please. And it was a terrible decision because it totally distracted me, but I'm glad I did it because it really forced me to refine what I was doing. And, we're going through right now, we're actually revamping those courses. So the 2025, 2026 versions are actually coming out right now. The GBP Expert course and the Local SEO Masterclass should be revamped by then. And I'm kind of redoing the delivery course and the selling course right now. Pretty excited about what those are going to look like when things are said and done. And, we're talking about Local SEO Academy right now, and the community is over 50 people at this point, which is crazy at the year mark. And so like we have weekly Q&A calls. We've been having monthly expert training. Josh was one of them. Shannon was on last month, which is really cool. And we got some cool people coming up talking about, podcasting, talking about LinkedIn short video growth and things like that. So it's really exciting. I think a lot of people ask me how the heck did you do this so quickly? And in a tongue-in-cheek way at WTPCon, I joked about how it's like, well, don't have a partner, don't have kids. But really it's actually leaning on people for support. I took a leap back in the start of 2023 and I joined pro at the community tier. And I said, I can't really afford this right now, but I also can't afford to not to. And if you think about this, I'm not going to say prices out loud because I know they're probably going to change throughout the year, but go look right now what the full price is for Local SEO Academy and for Web Designer Pro, at the coaching tiers, and add that up for the year. It's probably less than you would charge for one website. And you're going to get tapped into two communities that are both super active, super fun, and everybody's trying to do the same thing. And you don't get that anywhere else. This is not some random ass Facebook group where people are trying to sell to each other, right? These are people that are actually supporting each other. I've been building real freaking relationships inside of Web Designer Pro over the last 2 years. And that's been
one
awesome.
of them's on your team now.
Yeah, one of them was on my team. I pay her too much. No, I'm just kidding. I don't pay her enough.
Eleanor's worth it. She's freaking awesome.
I know she's worth a lot more. Trust me.
She's probably a dream to work with too. It's just good to work with good people. Eleanor is someone who you get a message or an email from, and you're like, that feels good to get a no from her, rather than
right. Yeah.
What does she want now? Nope, that's not the case.
No, yeah. Eleanor, she's definitely a special one. But yeah, I guess that's my sales pitch. Go check it out. Go get support. Go get the help that you need because, you need help to do this. And that's exactly what you get in these communities. And yeah, if you want to get a deal on Local SEO Academy, go to localseoacademy.co/Josh2. That's the link I'm going to make work after this because it's our second episode together. So we're going to make it an even cooler discount. So check it out.
Awesome, Sam. Well, I appreciate it, man. We'll have that linked in the show notes. Obviously, if anyone comes to me and wants to go further into the SEO world, it's not something I cover in my course, which is more of a foundational course. I know where to go. I say I know where to go. It's Local SEO, baby. So that's my recommendation and I'm sticking to it. It is an honor to be a part of your journey, man, to be able to say I've had a hand in, seeing you get to this point. I'm pumped. And look, we're still at the beginning of all this. So how exciting is that? We're going to continue to take this thing to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have the foundation, I rave about Josh's SEO course all the time because it's you need that foundation. And I don't exactly remember what Josh said at WDPCon, the first in-person meeting for the Web Designer Pro community in Columbus a couple months ago. But you shared something along the lines of getting to see everybody tangibly, right? In person. You shared something where like, this is what I always wanted to build. You have this vision of helping other people grow a business like you were able to do back in the day. And you get to you're seeing it come to fruition in real life. And, I can't speak for all the hundreds of other lives that you've touched, from the people in Web Designer Pro to the people that just watch the YouTube channel or just listen to the podcast, because we know there's thousands of people that listen to this and get a ton of value and then just go forth and do the things that you'll never get to meet. But it's just thank you. Thank you for everything you've done, Josh, because I know I wouldn't be here without you. And can't say enough. I appreciate you.
There's no better way to end than that one, man. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it, dude. And yeah, you're freaking awesome. Love coaching Eagles. I love coaching Eagle. And Sam,
let's go.
Sam's an Eagle. Thanks, dude. Till the next one. What a shining example of what's possible when you commit, when you're hungry, and when you just get down, put your work boots on, and do the work. Sam is, again, one of the biggest success stories and highlights of Web Designer Pro, as far as somebody who went into this industry, didn't know barely anything, and utilized the resources. So I want to say right up front, if you want to be the next Sam, what are you waiting for? Web Designer Pro is here for you. We have different tiers available now. So if you need time to go through the courses, if maybe you're working a 9-to-5 and you don't have time to commit to the community or coaching, you can go through the courses in the courses tier. If you want to do what Sam did and just jump on in, head first to the deep end and jump into the community, you can have both. You can go to all the courses and you can get the community aspects with our extra trainings and the actual community itself. And then we do open up coaching spots often now when available. So you can get direct coaching with me when you're ready. You can find all that information at webdesignerpro.com. Again, head to the show notes for this one at joshhall.co/399. There you will find the links for everything we mentioned, including Sam's agency website, his special offer for you as a listener of this podcast for his Local SEO Academy, and everything else that we talked about. Thank you so much, friend, for joining. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified on the next ones that are coming out. We've got some doozies ahead. And again, I just want to publicly say, way to go, Sam. What an honor to be a part of his journey. Thanks for joining, friend. If you want to be the next Sam, I hope to see you in Web Designer Pro.